Good evening to all members of Bhikkhu Sangha, pious yogis, and the Dhamma volunteers. This evening, we shall discuss about three kinds of papancha. Papancha is translated as obsessions in English. These three kinds of papancha or tanha or craving, mana consists, wrong view of self, ditthi are the cause of samsara or prolonging the samsara. So the roots of papancha is avidya or moha or ignorance or delusions. So this papancha avidya moha can arise due to unwise attention or ayoniso manasikara. Yoniso manasikara means wise attention. Yoniso manasikara, wise attention is similar to insight knowledge or right view. Rightly understands impermanence as impermanent, or suffering as suffering, no self as no self. So if one doesn't have wise reflections, then one would take what is impermanent as permanent. One would take what is suffering as happy. One would take what is no self as self. So because of this papancha, then give rise to the notion, this is mine, or this I am, or this myself. In Pali, etam mama, or eso ham masmi, eso me atta. So this notion, this is mine, is induced or caused by craving. The notion, this I am, by conceit. The notion, this myself, this myself is induced or caused by the wrong view. So worldlings means Buddhajana, always defiled by these kinds of obsessions or papancha. Similarly, meditators who have not yet attained enlightenment could also be obsessed by this papancha. For example, yogis may become conceited. There's mana arising, thinking that my insight knowledge is very sharp, very strong, and so on. I'm happy with my mindfulness or insight knowledge, realizing for example, many processes of broken movements, always seeing no form, no self, and so on. So as long as one is not enlightened, then one may have clinging to the idea of self. So once the Buddha asked, when what exists by clinging to what, by adhering to what, does one regard things, this mine, or this I am, this is my self. This one the Buddha asked the bhikkhu, when what exists, or by clinging to what, or by adhering to what, does one regard things, tasks, or is mine, or this I am, this is my self. So the Buddha said, when there's form, or form is the rupa khanda, by clinging to this form, by adhering to the form, one regards things, tasks, this is mine, or this I am, this is myself. Then similarly the Buddha said, when there's feeling, vedana khanda, or perception, sanya khanda, volition formations, or sankhara khanda, consciousness, vijnana khanda. So by clinging to this khanda, so by adhering to this khanda, then one regard these things, this is mine, or this I am, this is myself. So do you cling to your body, or do you cling to your feeling? Feeling. Do you cling to your feeling? Do you cling to your perceptions? Do you cling to your mental formation and consciousness, or the mind? What's the cause of clinging? Why does clinging, upadana, arise? This is because one has not yet realized impermanent through direct experience. Are you able to cling to something that is impermanent? But sometimes you still cling to the past. So when you're clinging to the past, then the mind always wander the past to some memories. Some memories cause unpleasant feeling to arise. Yet the mind likes to go back to that memories. So even the memory is unpleasant, yet the mind goes back to think of that memory again.
Unpleasant, is it?
Although the memory is unpleasant, dukkha, yet the mind likes to go back again. Even though one may understand from the teaching that everything is impermanent, yet the mind likes to go back to the past or fantasize the future. So if one realizes impermanent through direct experience, then one could overcome that clinging. So then the monk, so the Buddha asked the bhikkhu again. So he also includes those who are practicing the Buddhas of the teaching in order to attain the cessation suffering. So the Buddha asked, but without clinging to what is impermanent, suffering and subject to change, could one regard anything thus, this is mine, this I am, or this myself? So the Buddha asked the bhikkhu another question. So here bhikkhu means including those who are following the teachings of the Buddha, striving diligently to develop mindfulness, concentration, insight knowledge in order to attain cessation of suffering. So the Buddha asked this question, but without clinging to what's impermanent, or suffering and subject to change. Could one regard anything task or this is mine or this I am, this myself? So if you could realize impermanent, then the clinging will be removed. Then you come to realize this is not mine, or this I am not, or this is not self. So if we will wish to attain cessation of suffering, then this teaching definitely apply to you. So that's why we have to be mindful of the five aggregates as they really occur. So these five aggregates constitute nama rupa, mental phenomena and physical phenomena. So during the practice of mindfulness meditation, vipassana meditation, you have to be mindful of your own mind and body. It's because you have to gain direct experience to the true natures of the mental and physical phenomena. So what is the true nature of mental and physical phenomena? So the true natures of mental and physical phenomena refers to their individual characteristics and the three common characteristics. If meditators aspire to realize the true nature of mental and physical phenomena, then they have to strengthen the power of mindfulness, and they have to develop constant and continuous mindfulness for a longer and longer period of time. So when meditators could develop constant and continuous mindfulness, and the mind is free from mental hindrances and other defilements, then they would attain deep concentration. And if meditators aspire to develop constant and continuous mindfulness for a longer and longer period of time, then they need to put forth effort or strenuous effort into the practice. So meditators have to mindful and note constantly, continuously from one object to next object, from one movement to next movement. So whenever meditators make any mental labeling, they have to make sure that the mindfulness or the awareness does not go to the labeling or the words. For example, when meditators make labeling, lifting a few times, if the mindfulness is staying with the labeling, then the meditators will not able to realize the true nature of that lifting process. We cannot realize the true natures of mental and physical phenomena by mindful of the words or the concept. So the word or the concept is to help you to develop the mindfulness, so that the mindfulness is getting more and more attentive, energetic and precise on the object. So when meditators could perceive any object, such as the process of movements well, then the mindfulness will be developed and becoming stronger and stronger. So it's important to perceive the movements well, then make the labeling, or perceive whatever object that's arising at that moment well, then make the mental labeling. So when meditators make the mental labeling, they also have to make sure that the mindfulness or the awareness is still staying with the object. So when the mindfulness or the awareness is staying with the object, then at that moment the mind is experiencing the process of that object. In other words, mindfulness means paying attention to an object that's arising at that moment and experiencing the process of that object as it really occurs. Or in other words, when the mindfulness staying with the object, then you gain direct experience to the process of that object. You gain direct experience or personal experience to the process of that object. So when meditators are able to experience directly the process of every object well and constantly, continuously, then the true nature of the object is getting clearer and clearer. So when the mindfulness is getting sharper with deep concentration, then the experience on the true nature of the object is also getting clearer and clearer. So at that moment, meditators need not have to analyze the experience. If meditators analyze the experience, then they may not realize the true nature of that object well. For example, some meditators may have some preconceived ideas or hearing from their friends that there are many kinds of pain, such as cutting pain, piercing pain, dull pain, and so on. Then, whenever they are mindful of the pain, they try to find out if this pain if this pain is a dull pain, or if this pain is a cutting pain, and so on. In that way, they cannot gain the true experience of the pain because they are influenced by that preconceived idea. So when meditators are able to experience the true natures of any object well, then the mind will be inclining towards the ultimate reality. In other words, is no longer interested in the concept. At the beginning of practice, the mind is still interested in the concept. For example, my legs are getting tighter, my leg is getting heavier, and so on. Meditators may be interested the ways the pain, whether the pain is arising at the time, when the pain is moving to which place, and so on. If meditators pay attention to the location of pain and following the pain, for example, the pain is moving from the thigh to the knee, to the calf, to the foot, to the toes, then they cannot realize the true nature of the painful sensation well. But do you think an object will be moving from one place to another place? Actually, ultimate realities does not move from one place to another place. According to the commentaries, the Paramatha Dhamma, absolute realities cease and vanish at the places they come to existence. But as long as meditators have not yet attained deep concentration, in other words, momentary concentration, they may not able to realize the instant arising and passing away of the object. At the beginning of practice, meditators cannot go beyond the concept immediately. So the meditators have to strengthen the mindfulness so that the mindfulness is getting more attentive, precise on the object. What are these objects or what are these phenomena? These objects or phenomena consist of mental and physical. So as you know, physical phenomena are movements or hot, hardness, and so on. So at the beginning of practice, you may come to realize that the heel is moving upwards. But what should be mindful or perceive is the movements. We do not take note of the heel is moving upwards. We do not take note the front foot or the toe is going upwards. We do not take note that the foot is moving forward. What should be mindful is the movements, such as the lifting process is a movement, raising process is another movement, pushing forward is another movement. Similarly, meditators sometimes experience the body is very warm or the body is very cold. Then they should be mindful of that phenomena, warm or cold. They should not take note which part of body is hot, which part of body is cold. So similarly, when meditators mindful of any mental states, for example thinking, meditators need to realize that there's a thinking process going on. They do not have to find out the contents of the thoughts or the thinking. As the meditators are making mental labeling, for example thinking, at that time the meditators should be mindful of the thinking process. They should not mindful of that labeling. If meditators turn their attention to that labeling, then they cannot realize the passing away of that thinking mind. So when the mindfulness is getting more and more precise on the phenomena, when there's deep concentration, meditators will realize their individual characteristics or sabhava lakhana. So meditators experience, for example, there's a process of rising movements, there's a process of falling movements. At that moment, there's a process of mindfulness perceiving the rising movements. The mind can only perceive one thing at each moment. So that's why mindfulness is translated as a full attention, paying full attention to one object at each moment. But at the beginning of practice, meditators could not pay full attention to one object. When the mindfulness is not strong enough, meditators still conscious of other less distinct objects. But when they keep on practicing with increasing effort, firm effort, then they will be able to realize one object at each moment. Then they would gain concentration in the practice of vipassana meditation. So this vipassana samadhi will give rise to insight knowledge. So at that moment, there's realization that there's a pair of processes. For example, one is the object, such as the rising movements. The other is a process of mindfulness. If there's a painful sensation arising, then there's a realization that there's a process of mindfulness, noting the pain. There's nothing else. So at that time, the meditators also experience that the mindfulness or the awareness is going towards the object. The physical phenomena cannot know anything, cannot feel anything. Then when meditators keep on practicing, meditators come to realize that the mindfulness or the awareness arising dependent on the object. If there's no object, then the mindfulness cannot arise. For example, if there's no lifting movements, meditators cannot make mental labeling lifting. But because there's a lifting movements, awareness will be arising, knowing or perceiving the lifting movements. So if there's no thinking, then there's no awareness of the thinking. If the rising movements disappear, then the meditators cannot mindful and not rising anymore. So sometimes meditators realize the rising movements have disappeared, then there's no other dominant object or distinct phenomenon, then they should not keep the mindfulness there. The meditators might have to mindful of the alternative, the sitting postures and the touching points. So this realization of the mindfulness arising dependent of the object is very important. It's because meditators begins to see or to realize conditionality.
Paticca.
Yes, Paccaya, conditions, Paccaya. It's because we can only realize, for example, the nature of impermanence by observing conditioned phenomena. If you cannot see conditionality during the practice of vipassana meditation, then you cannot see clearly the nature or the characteristics of anicca or impermanent. So it is explained in the scriptures what is impermanent, what is conditioned phenomena, what is conditioned phenomena, sankata.
Sankata.
So you can see the arising and the vanishing or passing away. Then after arising, the phenomenon could be persisting. While persisting, the phenomenon keep on changing. So we can only perceive or realizing arising and passing away, the phenomenon subject to change in the conditioned phenomena. So if you cannot see in your practice, the relationship between the mindfulness or the awareness and the object, then you could not realize conditionality. If you could not see the relationship between the object and the process of mindfulness, then you may not able to realize conditionality. For example, sometimes the meditators exercise control over the process of mindfulness, holding the mindfulness strongly, so that the mindfulness is able to mindful and note the process of rising movements, the process of falling movements, then the process of rising movement again, constantly, continuously. Exercise control over the process of mindfulness. Holding the mindfulness, the process of mindfulness tight, very tight, strongly, then so that the mindfulness is able to mindful and note the process of rising movements, the process of falling movements, then the process of rising movement again, continuously. So they could not see that the mindfulness is arising depending on the rising movements. It's because they exercise control over the process of mindfulness, so that the mindfulness you mindful and note continuously various processes of rising and falling movements. When there's a thinking arising, they still think that the mindfulness is still staying with the movements of rising or the movement of falling. When there's a thinking arising, the meditator still think that the mindfulness is still staying with the rising movements or the falling movements. Then they will bring the mindfulness from the rising movements or the falling movements to note that thinking. So they think that there's one and the same mind that has been mindful and note various objects or various phenomena. So if meditators did not exercise strong control over the mindfulness, then they may realize that the mindfulness will move to the strong object by itself. Or when there's a strong object arising, the mind will appear there instantly. So meditators have to realize that mindfulness is also one of the mental states or one of the mental processes that also have three characteristics, anicca, dukkha, and anatta. So when meditators are practicing correctly, they come to realize that the mindfulness is always arising dependent on the object. When the object had disappeared or had passed away, the mindfulness will not be persisting, or that mindfulness also will pass away. So then meditators begins to realize impermanence. Meditators have to realize or experience these characteristics of impermanence or dukkha or suffering, anatta, no self, again and again. As long as the realization is not thorough, meditators will not be able to make more progress. You may understand that impermanence means arising and passing away, or appearing and disappearing, or sometimes you may have the idea that there's beginning, there's ending, but the commentaries define impermanence more than that
มากกว่าที่เราเข้าใจอยู่
for example Abhidhamma define the characteristics of impermanence as the mood of arising and passing away and changing
Again please
the Abhidhamma define the characteristics of impermanence as the mood of arising and passing away and subject to change. But the definition does not stop there. Then it says further, reaching non-existence after having come to be. So in other words, it never appear in the past. You cannot say this phenomenon had appeared in the past or being stored somewhere. Due to suitable condition, this phenomenon appears. So after appearing, it will cease. Cease means pass away. So the word cease means does not exist anymore. But as long as the practice is not yet matured and the mind experience is not deep enough, meditators still have the idea that the same painful sensation coming back again, the same thinking or same thoughts come back again. But if you understand well the definition of anicca, impermanence, do you think something that had passed away, has ceased, will come back again? You never come back, because already ceased means